Hi, I'm your host, Erica Polsinelli, and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast, where we talk all things spirituality, ascension, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited that you are here. Come on in. I'm starting today with a quote from a philosopher. This is so not my vibe, but it's going to help me get to where we need to be. So it's a Socrates quote. And there are two actually. The first one, all I know is that I know nothing. And the other one is the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Okay, so guys, we're getting into this. That thought, that concept came before I actually saw the quote. And as I was feeling this and experiencing it, one of my best friends actually posted that to her story. And I'm like, this is what I've been trying to explain and describe of what I'm going through. So I'm basically going through a crisis. I'm just kidding. I'm being very dramatic. But there's something happening within me, and there's a really, really big shift happening. And I love having spiritual awakenings. There's not just one awakening you're going to have in your life. There's going to be layers upon layers upon layers. If we're doing the work and we're asking to really live in our highest life path, that's just what comes with the territory. If we're having really early morning sadhanas with insanely powerful and transformative practices, this is just something that comes with the territory. So I welcome it with open arms. Right now, what I'm experiencing is this space of, yes, I know a lot, and yes, I know nothing at all. And some of you may be able to relate, and some of you may be like, what on earth is she saying? Has she lost her mind? Like, she's the teacher. She's supposed to teach us things. How does she know nothing? Welcome to the show. I crack myself up. Okay, so basically, I mean, there's so many pillars and there's so many different ways we can go with this. Right now in our world, this is just a macro example as we come into the Aquarian age. And I've spoken about this so many times, and we're going to go into a whole other layer today. But the macro way and the way that I've been seeing this and experiencing it for a while is that you can find something true and false about anything at all just from a Google search. You can literally, Bam Bam actually ate grapes the other day, and there are literally, no, he ate raisins yesterday. And there are literally articles saying that like they're fatal, that's it. And then no, sometimes dogs are not affected at all. Like there are things that are for and against anything and everything we believe. And like what is even true on that big conscious level, that collective level, what is even true? Okay, we've spoken about this before. But now to zoom in even more, I've been experiencing where I want to share so much all the time. And I'm having these moments of apprehension because I understand that what I'm saying might be true right now, but can actually not be true eventually, or it can be truth for someone else on the receiving end and then not at all true for someone else on the other end. So it's a really interesting thing to navigate. And what I've learned from this quote unquote crisis I'm having, and I say that so lightly and like with so much love and humor and light because it really isn't at all, but it feels like this internal conflict of things are how we see it, and someone else's perspective and someone else's truth out there exists that can be entirely different than mine. And that is all good. So when I started to share for Evolve, like I found the secret sauce. Like I'm telling you, I found Kundalini and I was like, oh my God, I literally found the secret and the solution to everybody's problems. I just have to share this and get it out there and do it any way that I can and just like fly a flag and be like, I found the solution. Come and join me if you wish. And that That was a beautiful process. And I've been reflecting on it and how like beautiful and naive and genuine and authentic this process has been from start to now. And I'm just starting to notice how the more I uncover and the more awareness I can uncover, there are just so many truths that exist. And there's not one truth. There's always more than one truth. So my dad would always say when we were younger, like, there's like your truth, the other person's truth, and then like the real truth. Like that was his saying. And I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe that there are multiple truths that can exist. My truth can exist, my beliefs can exist, my opinion can exist, and another person's beliefs that are completely different than mine, another person's opinion that's completely different than mine can also be true and exist. And like, I think we could also use politics as an example. You guys know I never even touched politics with a 10-foot pole for so many freaking reasons, mostly because it's just so toxic. But I like looking at it that way because I think that's where people are most triggered right now in our society. And what I've started to do is literally say, like, I honor my truth. I honor my beliefs. I honor my opinion. But when someone comes at me with a completely different one, I honor theirs. And theirs is just as true as mine. But like, think for a moment how mind blowing that can be when your truth is the direct opposite or very, very different than the other person's. Like, how can you wrap your head around the fact that those both can be just as true? Like, take a moment to do that with me because whoever's listening might be like, this girl's literally on drugs. Like, what is going on? What are we even talking about? But these are the realizations and the moments that I'm having within myself. And it's really hard to talk about. And if I bring it to social media, I know it's going to sound funny. If I try to have this conversation with Vinny, he's going to be like, Erica, like, I literally don't know what you're talking about. Like, you have other people to talk about this with. Go and find them. But this is what I'm experiencing at this moment. And I think that there's pros and cons to it. So I'm going to share them with you. So with the most recent example, the pros, I'll start there. Positive Pam over here, starting on the positives. I think it helps us to be so much less judgmental, so much less defensive. I find myself, if someone disagrees with me or says something that's triggering, I literally find myself being like, you know what? They might be right. And I might be right as well. And we all might be right. And it's just so liberating to never have to prove anything to anyone or defend yourself in any way and just accept what someone else believes or thinks and accept at the same exact time the opposite, maybe what you believe and think. So I think it's really liberating. I think it helps us to be so much less judgmental. I think it helps us to be more compassionate and open-minded and more flexible. I think where we've gotten in our society right now is a place where people feel like you might have to believe one way and not be able to change your mind or not be able to think outside of the narrative that's being shown to you. Whereas when we can be more accepting and understanding that like our opinions, our beliefs are so unique. They're so based off of our own life experiences. There is no hierarchy of opinions. It's all based off of our consciousness. We can have so much more empathy and understanding for one another. And it is like a freaking mind shifter, game changer. So I think those are some of the benefits that come with that. And I think some of the cons, personally for me, I think it's been holding me back a bit. I think I've been not as willing to share what I so strongly believe because I'm so aware that the opposite can exist out there and be true as well. And it's made me less fiery, less passionate, less reactive, which sometimes feels a little bit of like, kind of like a missed opportunity. Like, oh, I should have posted this, but I felt all the other sides of this and all the other truths that could exist. So I'm just not going to post this. So I hope you're following me in this rabbit hole of higher consciousness, because I'm wondering if there are other people that are experiencing something similar to this right now. And what I think it is expansion, and I think it's shifting a paradigm. I think we're really shifting into a new paradigm right now in the collective, and we're coming into this space of 5D in a way that we haven't been before, and maybe honestly, maybe even beyond 5D. Like we might be really tapping into even higher dimensions at this point. So, for those of you who haven't heard much about the dimensions, 3D is everything of this physical realm, everything that we're experiencing, seeing, feeling, touching, smelling. Um, and 5D is this space of more intuition, more intuitive knowing, more intuitive guidance, more acceptance, and all of those, more love. And we're at this moment here where we're really bridging that old paradigm, the Piscean paradigm, the 3D paradigm, and bridging that gap to the fifth dimension and the Aquarian age and the new paradigm that we're entering. And I think that these thoughts that I'm having have a lot to do with that. And with that, comes just a lot of awareness. And I think in the last two podcasts, I couldn't stop talking about awareness, because it's kind of like, I guess, Pandora's box. Everyone like always throws that around. I'm not even really sure what that is, but from what I understand, it's like, this exists until you shift and move, and then all of a sudden you see something else that was in a shadow that you literally couldn't see. It was in your blind spot until the light was brought to it, until the awareness was brought to it. And through our practice, by joining here on the podcast and listening to all these high vibey conversations, that might sound a little wacky right now in this moment, but by doing all this work and surrounding yourself in frequencies of higher consciousness, we're able to bring in more light into those shadows, and we're able to see things there that may have always been there and already been there, but now we could see them more clearly. And I think this is just a shift that I'm starting to have, and I invite you to find a balance with this, because I feel like my pendulum swung really hard to one side. But finding the balance in accepting that there is more than one truth. And when you're in that conversation with your mother or your father or your brother or your partner or your coworker or the person who triggers you the most, and you feel that trigger coming up, allowing yourself to have the moments of realization that their truth can 100% exist and be just as real as your truth. And I think that acceptance takes a lot of humility. I think it takes a lot of compassion. And I think it takes a lot of putting our ego to the effing side and being like, okay, this person is allowed to feel or believe exactly what he or she is believing. And that does not take away from my thought, my opinion, and my belief. And starting to think about that in those moments of triggers, and as you're approaching other people, and as you're interacting with other people, especially the people who sometimes bring up those triggers, I think it's a game changer. I think it's going to shift a lot for you. And it certainly has for me. And just understanding that our truth is really just a collection of experiences that we've had, and then forming an opinion or a belief around it. And how could we ever expect someone else who had a completely different journey a completely different experience, even if they're so close to us, we don't know what their experience was like. We don't know how they're internalizing their experiences and interactions. How could we ever form judgment or have to feel defensive or have to prove ourselves when we know nothing about how they perceive their journey thus far? So, wanted to drop that here. I would love for you to DM me about this because this is like something we got to go deep on, especially if you're experiencing this too. But I hope that you enjoy these little mini solos of divine downloads or explosions because that's what this kind of felt like. Just like, boom, here we are inside Erica's head. This is what it's like. And I do think that a big part of this shift started happening with the spring equinox, and serendipitously on the spring equinox, I started to do that new heavy duty practice that I've told some of you guys about, or that I've been posting about. So what we put into our practice is what we're going to get out. And the shifts are always here for us. And the practice always is here for us as a vehicle to help these major shifts start to happen in our life, to change our perspective, change how we see things, change how we perceive things and beyond. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have any follow-ups on this, reach out because your girl wants someone who gets it and who could chat because it's been an interesting journey. I will see you next time. Thank you for all the love, all the suggestions always for the podcast. I love them. And we have a few more solo episodes coming up soon. So enjoy. May the longtime sun shine upon you. Sat Nam.